From the people who help you know your competition, IntelliCheck presents the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. The Multi-Point Inspection Podcast brings you news and stories from the automotive world told in an informative and entertaining way.
Well, add auto mechanics to the list of workers in short supply since the onset of COVID-19.
Is out of CBT News. The article is called How Car Dealers Can Navigate the Ongoing Auto Tech Shortage.
According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the number of mechanics in the country is declining.
The great resignation, as everyone's calling it, dealerships are experiencing that too.
It is not just dealers. Research indicates independent aftermarket repair shops around the country face the same scarcity. The pandemic has exacerbated the problem, but the shortage of technicians has been long-term. Those in the business worry it is because of some kind of deep generational shift away from work in the trades. Dealers, automakers, and others in the industry are trying to learn more about the shortage and how it can be solved.
I have a lot of people ask me sometimes, if you could go back, would you still become a Ford technician or an automotive technician, or do you think that it is a good move to become an automotive technician in 2022?
You might remember from episode 3 my failed attempt to find a mobile repair outfit to come change my oil at my studio so I could work on another episode of the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast.
Hey, this is I'm unable to get your call up now, but if you'll leave a name and number, I'll get to you as soon as I can. Thank you. Have a great day.
The mailbox is full and cannot accept any messages at this time. Goodbye.
No thanks. I don't want anyone touching my car that can't clean out their voicemail inbox. Well, I really was past due for an oil change, so I decided to go to Ben Jesse and the mechanics. And I thought I'd interview Ben while I was there about the auto technician shortage that is sweeping the nation. And if the name Ben Jesse and the Mechanics sounds like it could double as a band name, that's because he plays music too. In fact, there's some debate around town whether he's a better mechanic or musician because he excels at both. Here's the first couple of lines from a poem written about Ben from a satisfied customer who posted it on social media. Ben Jesse is a good man. He's the doctor of my car. He's not just a mechanic, he can shred the bass guitar. I recently found him playing bass with Tyler Goodson at Jackson, Tennessee's legendary Downtown Tavern. So good, walking with me. How I wish you would stay, you look so good. Come on, I know you ain't afraid of mine.
No, I'm not afraid of mine. Hey, no problem. There is a major tech shortage, though.
Yeah. And what can fix it, maybe,
Fathers working with their sons, that's what can fix it. There's a lot of people that want to do it, and there's a lot of people that go to school for it, but there's nothing like hands-on. And it takes a lot to get experience, it's not really so much the different types of cars, it's more like big 3D puzzles, can you take it apart, see what's wrong, put it back together right. And everybody's looking for a quick fix. Rather than find the problem, they'll try this and try that and try this.
Is there anybody doing anything in the schools?
Well, my son, when he went to Liberty, they had an auto mechanics class, but they didn't really do anything in there. And they don't even have one now. When I was in school, we were working on our own vehicles, tearing transmissions out and doing brakes. And sure, the midterm and the final was the same test for every year, but we knew it, and it was just basic principles of how engines work. But nowadays, there's nobody, it's almost like the want to isn't there.
If you do a Google search for automotive technician shortage, one thing there isn't a shortage of is the number of articles about this crisis.
I'm going to have you guess this number. How short are we going to be on technicians by 2024?
150,000.
That is way off. 642,000. 642. That's over 500,000 techs short.
Mamacita.
But the good news is that the number of articles focusing on finding a solution is also on the rise. Some people have even started businesses devoted to reversing this trend.
I grew up in a small independent shop up here in Wisconsin, in a shop that my dad still runs to this day, and had always noticed that there was an issue with being able to find technicians. And I'd heard about it since I was a kid, but what I noticed was that it was progressively getting worse and worse and worse. And as I kind of graduated into industry and felt like we as an industry had kind of turned our attention away from trying to get more talent into the doors, and it was because it was so easy for so long. And it just progressively got worse and worse and worse. So as I saw that, and as my experience as an industry kind of led me to, we needed to try and find something they need to do to keep their technicians and recruit new technicians into their shops.
This is Jay Goninen. He originally started a company called Find a Wrench, and then later teamed up with his tech-savvy friend Mark Wilson to form WrenchWay.
The reason I called it Find a Wrench was because when I was a kid, my dad would say, I can't find a damn wrench anywhere, right? So I just kind of took a play on words and left I had a really good job at a dealership overseeing parts and service departments for about 8 different locations, actually on the equipment side. So it was for a John Deere dealership. And so I left that job and I had thought about starting this company, Find a Wrench, for some time. I actually bought the domain to it in like 2004 as it became apparent that this was getting worse and worse and worse, and that I was now in the industry and now struggling to find people to work for me. We actually started a more recruiting type of business. And so we started Find a Wrench in 2017, early 2017, and it grew really, really quick, right? There was a couple different problems that we identified. One, there wasn't enough people in the industry. We needed to try and work to help solve that. But then two, kind of all job descriptions kind of look the same. If you were to go to Indeed in any city or any metro area and type in automotive technician, there were thousands of jobs. It was overwhelming for a technician. So we wanted to create a platform that allowed a shop to essentially sell themselves to a technician. Why are you a good place? Why are you different than anybody else? And so I had partnered up with a good buddy of mine who had a history in technology, right? He had some technology businesses prior. I have no technology background, no tech background. And so we kind of combined forces and it merged our companies and created WrenchWay. And really, that's the platform that is today was started just based on that, our experience. And we actually phased out Find a Wrench because we don't want to just be in recruiting. We want to be able to be kind of a force of good for the industry. And again, trying to get more people in the industry and educate shops on how to be better businesses to work for, right? I think when it comes down to it, the WrenchWay business fits what our mission is so well. And I think it gives a lot of technicians a lot of good opportunities out there.
And he's not kidding around about giving technicians opportunities. If you go to WrenchWay.com or download the WrenchWay app, it's like this hybrid of the best parts of Indeed, LinkedIn, and Facebook for both technicians and shops. In the Top Shop section, a technician can browse shops in their area looking to hire. Then there's the reverse job post section where technicians fill out a 5 to 10 minute questionnaire about the job they are looking for, and shops can message through the app if interested. There is no resume needed and texts remain anonymous. And there is even a section for part-time student jobs. And finally, there's the Shop Talk section where top shops can post. There are videos posted here as well from both top shops and WrenchWay. And there are also poll questions from WrenchWay, such as, does your shop have a documented development path for technicians? And we'll get into some of these poll questions and results after the break. IntelliCheck presents How Using Market Data Establishes a Busy and Profitable Service Department, Part 3. The auto service industry in the United States achieved a market value of more than $64 billion in 2021. It's big business to service, repair, and accessorize vehicles, and the forecast is for the industry to grow another 19% in the next 5 years. That's the good news. Unfortunately, car dealerships are only capturing 34% of that market share, according to the 2021 Cox Automotive Service Industry Study. Both trust and price are reasons why nearly 2/3 of car owners choose an independent repair shop over their selling franchise dealer. Data-driven solutions that cater to the customer will help consumers overcome the stigmas about having their vehicle serviced at your dealership. Intellicheck's market data can help dealerships capture more of the service and repair market, boosting profitability and creating long-lasting relationships with customers in 4 areas. We'll cover one of those areas today. Helps hold the line on competitively priced services and repairs. The price of parts has skyrocketed in recent months, even without dealer markup. Labor charges have also increased to keep pace with inflation, but for consumers, all they see is that the price has gone up. It's this territory that results in declined services and demands for a discount. In reality, it isn't just the dealership that's inflated their pricing. Manufacturers are charging more for parts and fluids across the board, whether for franchise dealers or the aftermarket. While the car owner might think they can drive to the service shop a block over for the same service at a fraction of the price, it just isn't the case, since that shop has also been hit with the same price increases. And instead of discounting to keep the business, market data can show the vehicle owner comparisons nearby. A well-positioned dealer will often be lower on certain services, a coolant flush for example, and slightly higher on others like a tire rotation and balancing. With that information clearly on display from a third-party source, the case for a discount vaporizes and approved services surge. Be sure to listen to the next episode of the Multi-Point Inspection podcast from Intellicheck to learn more about how using market data will lead to a busy and profitable service department. In 2022, in order to better understand technician satisfaction and views, WrenchWay gathered some stats from their mobile app. Here are a few that pertain to schools. 74% of technicians care if their shop is involved with local schools. 84% of technicians think high schools discourage students from entering the trades. And 76% do not think their shop does enough to help schools attract more students into technician programs.
So like going into 2023, one of our biggest initiatives is to help industry get more involved with schools in general, right? And one of the biggest issues that we've seen, and even prior to starting this business, that I had noticed with schools was that a lot of these instructors were frustrated because ultimately a business, a shop, would come to them at graduation time asking for their best student. And the frustration was that that wasn't the only call they were getting, right? They were getting dozens of different shops calling and asking for their best student at graduation time. And the instructors would always kind of sit back, at least the ones that I would talk to, and they would be really frustrated with it because they would, in the back of their mind, think, well, where have you been at all this time? How were you not helping us grow as a program? How are you not helping us get more students or helping us with some of our budgetary restrictions, this kind of stuff. And so there was kind of this weird infighting or, it was really not an organic relationship, and it almost felt forced. And I always equate it to the car dealer world with a sales manager and service manager type of relationship, where if a service manager sees a sales manager coming around the corner, they're typically thinking in the back of their head, well, what does he want now, or what does she want now? And rather than having that type of a relationship with the school, what we really push for and what we really want is for that local shop to get involved with their school, both at the high school level and the tech school level. And so the more that they can get intertwined with the schools, the more support that shows to those schools, the more they have to go to the school board when there's a tough budgetary talk or, something along those lines and saying, we have a lot of support for our program. Look at here. We've got this advisory committee with all kinds of members, and we've got people that are stopping by and donating stuff. And we're going on shop tours to see all of the opportunities that are out there. And I just think that is so incredibly important. And we see the number of programs that get cut across the country, not only in automotive, but in the skilled trades in general, that is heartbreaking because they're pulling the opportunity for these young people to see what it's like in our business. And we just can't have that. When we're losing programs, we're losing ground on catching up with this technician shortage every day, right? You just have to be more present to try and fix that.
According to WrenchWay's study, 79% of technicians have considered leaving the industry. 65% have left or have considered leaving because of a manager. 69% of technicians have experienced some level of burnout. And 57% of technicians say they think techs spend $60,000 plus on tools over their career.
The position itself has gotten, as a technician, has gotten massively more complicated, right? The technology has evolutionized over the last even year, but it continues to put pressure on us. And I think what I've noticed anyways, is that it did feel like we took our eye off the ball. We weren't focused on getting people through training, weren't focused on getting involved with schools. And in some cases, I think we were fat and happy the way it was, right? We were able to get, a line of techs out the door when we put an ad out 20 years ago. Or if you didn't get that response, you could probably easily ask around and find whoever it was that you were looking for. And that has changed a lot, right? As less people went into the trade. And frankly, there were a lot of techs that feel like they've been burned and still do, whether it's because of flat rate or because of them not being treated correctly by the shop that they work for. It's troublesome to see the amount of technicians that are leaving the field right now, right? It's almost like we're trying to get more people into this industry while we have a leak ship. We need to shore up our businesses and make sure that we're treating these people with the respect that they should get. And that goes along with wages. I think we're starting to catch up to some of the other trades that are out there, but, plumbing companies can't find plumbers right now either. So we're going to really continue to struggle with this. And alongside that, a new technician needs to supply their own tools. You don't see that as much in other trades. I think there's a whole bunch of stuff working against us. And when we took our eye off the ball in terms of developing new talent, that's put us in the conundrum that we are today, right? We've kind of put ourselves in this place. And I think it's really, really concerning that we haven't made more progress here. But I think for us, a couple key things that we've got to do is shore up our businesses right now, make sure that we're treating our people well, and then work to develop a new type of process or system to get more people into the industry. Because if we continue to keep our eye off the ball, we're going to be in a lot of trouble in a few years.
More results from the WrenchWay study find that 43% of technicians say compensation is the biggest factor keeping them at their job or shop. 40% say that pay structure is the most important thing to be fixed. 80% do not think warranty rates are fair. 77% feel manufacturers do not properly communicate how they develop labor times. 70% feel there isn't a good way to communicate back to manufacturers when they don't agree with a flat rate labor allowance.
There's a general perception with technicians, and I think a lot of times it's because the most dissatisfied technicians are the loudest, right? You see it on social media, and you see it in a variety of different ways. And it is tough because they, from a flat rate perspective, they can't control everything, right? They can't control if they've got a terrible service advisor or that there's constant turnover with the service advisors. And I think when we look at this, it's one of those things that I think is definitely fixable. We actually had done a poll on our WrenchWay platform. We have a section called Shop Talk, where basically shops can post content and be able to get feedback from industry or be able to kind of really show off who they are, right? And one of the polls that we had asked was what kind of pay you would most desire. And some of the feedback we got on that post was really interesting. And it was, I think, ultimately saying that techs wanted the ability to make really good money, but they also wanted the ability to not have to worry about getting a paycheck, right? And as we head into the winter months and some shops slow down here, that is really concerning to a technician, right? Because we all have bills, we all have families that we need to take care of, and we have all of these different things in our life. And if our check just isn't stable enough to be able to predict what we're going to bring home, it makes life really, really challenging. Now, on the other side of that, shops kind of go through the same thing, right? If business slows down, they still have a building to pay for. They still have all of these benefits to pay for. The shops are not cheap places to run. It's not like in an office setting. There's lots of equipment, lots of tools, and just lots of space. And so they're expensive places to run. So with a flat rate system, it's beneficial to the shop. But really, when the tech looks at it, they want that sense of security that they know what they're going to take home. So I see both sides of it, and I see how challenging that can be. But out of that poll, the one thing that came out that really stuck out to me was that technicians are looking for security. They're looking for stability in terms of what their weekly paycheck is going to be. And I think if shops can really take that into consideration and talk with their technicians about what would be a fair pay plan, and just be transparent, right? I think there's so much distrust between techs and management in how they're paying that shops could do themselves a huge favor by just sitting down with them and being transparent. This is why we pay the way we do. Would you have any suggestions? And maybe lay out some of the challenges that you have as a shop, and vice versa, right? Hear out technicians and maybe what some of their challenges are. So yeah, it's a ever evolving question. I think I asked that question when we started the company like 5 years ago, and it feels like we've made some progress, but then you'll hear a story from a tech and you're like, oh my goodness, we've gone backwards again. So I think it's one of those questions that's just going to continue to get asked, continue to get holes poked through it, and it is something else. I'll say that.
And to further show WrenchWay's dedication to being a force for good in the industry, Jay hosts Beyond the Wrench, a weekly podcast where he interviews shop owners, technicians, instructors, and professionals. In fact, you heard a clip from Beyond the Wrench in episode 3 of the Multi-Point Inspection podcast.
Welcome to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. Today, I am excited to welcome Joel Milne to the podcast. Joel is the CEO of a company called RepairSmith.
I recently stumbled across an episode of an interview he did with Jason Olinger, a service technician at Goninen Chevrolet in Jacksonville, Arkansas.
We talk about different educational programs and mentorship programs and how really Jason's leading from within his own department, and he does a really, really good job at it. He's very passionate about this industry, not only just at his shop, but what we can do to make the lives of technicians better everywhere.
Well, Jacksonville isn't that far from where I am in Tennessee. So on the next episode of the Multi-Point Inspection podcast, we're taking a trip to Jacksonville to learn firsthand some cool things Goninen Chevrolet is doing to combat the tech shortage crisis. I want to give a big thank you to Jay Goninen from WrenchWay for the interview. You can find the links to WrenchWay and Beyond the Wrench in the show notes. You can find the Multi-Point Inspection podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps with the algorithm thingy. Executive producer for the Multi-Point Inspection podcast is David Swan. It is written, produced, and narrated by me, Brandon Barnett. This episode's featured music is The Breeze by Brent Wood. IntelliCheck. Know your competition.